You know that album Scaring the Hose by JPEG Mafia? This film is kind of like Scaring the Bros.
Now what that shit? Stop scaring the hoes. Play that shit out and touch their toes. We don't really hear that good shit no more.
Die My Love is the fifth feature film from Scottish-British director Lynne Ramsey, her long-awaited follow-up to 2017's You Were Never Really Here, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Her directing style is well known for her focus on topics such as grief and isolation and loss, and how these topics shape our life from the very beginning to the very end, and how it is kind of something that we carry. Yes, you can make heads or tails of it, you can get better, you can get worse also. It's not always black and white, it's not always I start at 0, I end at 10. And this is kind of a topic that I feel like is well rung in her films. You kind of can't just expect to be a success. You can't expect to be happy and free from depression and isolation and grief for your entire life. It just kind of doesn't exist. That is ever present here in Die My Love. Those feelings are embodied by Jennifer Lawrence. Although I will say that on the flip side, there's another film in here that explores the grief and isolation as a result of Jennifer Lawrence's postpartum depression that Robert Pattinson feels. However, that is not the film that we are watching. The film that we are watching is a take on postpartum depression, where not very much happens in the film, and you're kind of just living in Jennifer Lawrence's mind for 2 hours, and is kind of struggling with the feelings of depression and desire and a longing for her partner. Ultimately is a hodgepodge of different emotions and different scenarios that are kind of mashed together and are kind of welded together, and it doesn't really fit like a jigsaw piece. It doesn't start at a point of grief, a point of isolation, and end at a point of happiness and coming together. And these are feelings that I think are very relevant to the modern world as postpartum depression becomes, let's say, either more common or becomes more commonly known about. We're a lot more knowledgeable about this topic right now, but the issue with this film is that you can't market this to a wide mainstream audience because not a lot happens. And ultimately, other than Jennifer Lawrence's performance, I kind of think that this film is pretty much empty. It's nearly 2 hours long, and it feels like that length. You kind of are feeling every moment, every minute, every second of this film. It feels very long because we aren't going anywhere, and because we are experiencing a lot of similar things but in different ways that are happening in Jennifer Lawrence's mind, whether she's expressing them, whether it's that she's just kind of standing in a room and you're meant to take something from the environment and from her face and from her body language, or whether it is from a dream sequence. It's all different ways of illustrating the same sorts of feelings: grief, loneliness, isolation, loss, and then ultimately desire. And whether that is the desire to be a good mother, or whether that is a sexual desire that she desires from either LaKeith Stanfield in the film or from Robert Pattinson. The struggle that I have with the film is that at a certain point I was kind of like, okay, I get it. And this is going to come across as dismissive because I am a man and because this is a film about postpartum depression. But at a certain point I was like, okay, I get it. This story needs to kind of move on. We need to see some sort of progress here, and it kind of just doesn't. And ultimately, the film kind of just ends in the same place that it begins in. Yes, again, this is a film that says kind of just have to work through postpartum depression. You kind of have to, at a certain level, just accept it and deal with it and manage it and cope it, but it's not told in a very interesting way. The main focus of this review and the main focus of everyone should be on the fact that Jennifer Lawrence is spectacular in this film. I do think she really commits, she really goes, she gives this really physical performance, but also a very animalistic style performance. The film kind of has a theory that postpartum depression is this very animalistic thing. I'm not really sure about that. I don't know enough about postpartum depression to really delve into that and explore whether or not that is true. But I will say that Jennifer Lawrence delivers it in such a physical way that I can respect it. That being said, because this is an Oscar vehicle specifically for Jennifer Lawrence, I do think it is worth saying that I don't think there is enough here that feels fresh to necessarily catapult her to that success. Yes, there is a lot of freshness here about postpartum depression that we aren't seeing on screen, but a lot of this film focuses on the sexual desire that she has and the feeling that she needs to be loved and to be sexually desired. That's already something that we had with the Oscar winner last year with Honora and Mikey Madison. There is obviously a lot of differences between those two stories, but if you're really thinking about this as a Oscar vehicle, there isn't enough here that I would consider fresh. The Academy isn't going to look at and go, well, we already had a film about female sexuality last year, so we kind of need to change it up and maybe focus on something else. And Jessie Buckley is talking about the grief of a mother, and whilst that's not necessarily a fresh topic, whilst that's not necessarily something that we haven't seen before, that is something that we haven't seen in the past few years, so that kind of feels a lot more tangible for a win right now. That being said, I still have a lot of respect for what Jennifer Lawrence is doing here. I just think that in some respects it kind of trudges on some similar ground that was explored last year, and therefore I can't see this being her Oscar win. As I also said, Robert Pattinson is pretty good in this film. He delivers a great performance as a guy that I felt a lot for. I did kind of feel sorry for him. You can quite clearly tell that Lynne Ramsey wants you to understand that a lot of the feelings that Jennifer Lawrence has about Robert Pattinson's character, it is misplaced, and there may be some basis in reality. Maybe Robert Pattinson isn't a great husband, a great father, but a lot of this is kind of informed by the fracturing perspective of Jennifer Lawrence's character. Even by the end of the film, is kind of left with this perspective of him saying, I will do better, I will do better, I will do better, and consistently doesn't know how to break through and help her in a way that means that she can cope. It is a testament to Lynne Ramsey as a director that she can posit this film and position this film as being entirely from Jennifer Lawrence's perspective and show you some things that they clearly want you to believe that maybe Robert Pattinson is this guy, maybe he is this fucked up kind of guy, maybe he isn't respecting his wife and treating her in the correct way. And then also make you feel kind of bad for him. And I think Lynne Ramsey's direction and I think Robert Pattinson as an actor both combine really well to craft a character that you can have a lot of sympathy for and have a lot of feeling for and feel pretty sorry for him. The main focus here is Jennifer Lawrence's feelings in this film need to be respected and need to be, maybe managed isn't the correct word, but dealt with and coped with and sort of explored in a way that she can understand that what she is feeling is normal. At the same time, Lynne Ramsey kind of positions the film as saying there is another person in this relationship and it is important to remember that. Now, again, maybe that's just my male perspective of the film. Elsewhere, I think the writing is pretty loose. As I've said, there's not much plot here. There is no base. There is no development whatsoever of a story, and that is kind of lackluster for me. I think I would be much more on board with this film if it was an hour and a half, an hour and 40. The direction, I do think Lynne Ramsey frames the film very well. It looks majestic. It looks very elegant and beautiful, and the constant close-ups on Jennifer Lawrence make you feel like you are inside her brain constantly. The film doesn't reach a conclusion by the end of it, and I understand, again, that postpartum depression is something that we are far, far away from having a conclusion on, but it kind of has this very nihilistic perspective of it is what it is, and that's not very satisfying whatsoever. Again, if that was Lynne Ramsey's aim, then fair enough. I can respect that. The inclusion of LaKeith Stanfield is puzzling to me and takes a lot of focus away from the relationship between Pattinson and Lawrence, and ultimately what they're trying to illustrate about sexual desire through Stanfield. You're already illustrating perfectly fine through the relationship between Pattinson and Lawrence, and ultimately, if this is a film that nothing is going to happen in, just let me sit with those two characters, and then the 5 minutes that you have with Nick Nolte, who is absolutely great in this film, makes Lawrence feel as if she's not crazy, shows her that it's not just you, there are others around you that are having a feeling of misplacement and are struggling with something. And then Sissy Spacek, as the only other person in the film who actually understands her and gets what she's going through, is a very good inclusion. I haven't seen Sissy Spacek in anything other than Carrie, and this is obviously wildly different. Overall, very good cast here. I think that Stanfield shouldn't be included. I think that the writing is very loose. There's some good direction here, not great. I think I'd probably prefer Ramsey's work on You Were Never Really Here. Lawrence and Pattinson are both knockouts. They bounce off each other really well. And there's a lot of sympathy and a lot of understanding that can be crafted for Lawrence's character in this film, as well as Pattinson's character, even though you never really hear his perspective. But ultimately, as a vehicle for understanding or getting a gist of what postpartum depression can or will be, this is very effective. I kind of came out of this film a bit scared, to be honest. And ultimately, the remedy for that has to be more awareness and more knowledge. And that, in my opinion, is the ultimate takeaway from this film.